I've realized as I quickly approach the half-century mark on this earth that the key to understanding anything is to experience it. As a tomboy growing up in a tight-knit, working-class, all-black neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, I didn't interact much with kids outside of my demographics. I would hear on the news things like kids getting kidnapped or murdered, but it never happened to anyone that I knew or to anyone who looked like me, so I didn't really think too much about it. But then, circa 1979, the Atlanta child murders began. My carefree tomboy life of being able to roam around the neighborhood whenever and wherever I wanted came to a screeching halt. Our parents were terrified. The fear was palpable. And for the first time, my friends and I realized that something horrible, like getting kidnapped or murdered, could happen to us. I was 9 years old, and for the first time in my life, I felt true fear because it could happen to me. When I was 12 years old, my parents separated and I moved with my mother to a very small town in South Georgia. It was my mom's hometown, actually, and this town was so small that it only had one junior high and one high school. So for the first time in my academic career, I was thrust into a predominantly white school. Now, I had only ever gone to school with other black kids, so I had no experience interacting with white kids and very little experience interacting with white people in general. So I had never experienced racial discrimination, not to my limited knowledge anyway. I knew racial discrimination existed, theoretically, but I didn't fully understand it. Well, I got a crash course that first school year, and every school year thereafter, since we remained in that school district until I graduated high school. Nothing overt, mostly things that today would be labeled microaggressions. Snide comments about hair differences, or being left off the invitation list to the pool party at your white friend's house. Things like that. In fact, I didn't experience overt discrimination until I was well into adulthood. My partner and I were one of 12 same-sex couples, suing the state of Illinois for the right to marry. And as part of that process, we had to go to the Cook County Courthouse in Chicago to apply for a marriage license. Now, we knew going in that we would be denied for the marriage license, but having that prior knowledge did nothing to soften the sting of rejection and the almost physical pain I felt when we were denied. When the court clerk looked at us so bluntly and rudely and said, "You can't get married. You're the same gender. It's illegal." You can never fully understand an injustice until it happens to you. I'm a distance runner. There's nothing I love more than taking a long leisurely run through the rolling hills of my Ben Lomond neighborhood. But after what befell Ahmaud Arbery earlier this year, as he jogged through his Georgia neighborhood, I wept. As a mother, my first thought was, that could have been my son. But my second thought was, that could have been me. Being able to so easily envision myself in Ahmaud Arbery's running shoes was the key to my being able to deeply empathize with what happened to him. Because it could have been me. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am not the most observant person in the world. I'm fairly certain that I don't even pay enough attention to the cash in my pocket to be able to tell you if this $20 bill is authentic or counterfeit. I don't know. So to watch the harrowing video last week of George Floyd being murdered for passing a counterfeit $20 bill was traumatizing to me. I haven't slept well since. Because I don't know if this $20 bill is counterfeit or not. And that could have happened to me. This past weekend, I watched a documentary called The Eye of the Storm. You know, the 1970 experiment where the elementary school teacher in this small rural town, in this all-white school, decided to teach her third grade students about discrimination by dividing them into blue eyes and brown eyes. So on day 1, the blue-eyed students would be superior, and on day 2, the brown-eyed students would be superior. And to further delineate them, the students that were on the bottom for any given day also had to wear a black felt collar around their necks so that they could more easily be identified. Now, the treatment received by the students on the bottom was unkind and a bit demeaning, but nothing atrocious, nothing like real-life racial or ethnic discrimination. But to witness the devastating, almost debilitating effects that the discrimination had on those children was something truly astounding and eye-opening to behold. Now today, such an experiment would never fly. It would be deemed unethical, too traumatizing for the children. But you know what? It worked. It worked like the proverbial charm. Those kids were so happy when the experiment was over and they could take off their collars and go back to being their happy-go-lucky selves and interacting with each other as equals, that when their teacher asked them, they were adamant that no one should ever be mistreated or judged or discriminated against because of their eye color or their skin color or anything so superficial. They understood, if only temporarily, how dehumanizing and demoralizing discrimination is. But they only understood it because they had experienced it for themselves. The key to understanding is experiencing the treatment or the phenomenon for yourself. Or at least having it resonate so deeply with you that you can easily put yourself in the shoes of the person who experiences it every day. If you never get the ability or the opportunity to do this, then you need to understand that you will never truly understand.